So I think, before we start this panel discussion, our objective of putting up this panel of very illustrious startup founders and one academician who is always looking for innovations in sustainability using technology. The objective was to showcase to you what is the possibility of sustainable startups and how technology can actually enable that. There are two, three major points which I would like to highlight before we start. One is SDGs are a set of 17 goals that are agreed between the countries and integrated into every country's economic, fiscal, and monetary planning. And it is as diverse as climate change, human rights, biodiversity, waste management, water, labor laws, and many such topics. So you will see a significant breadth and depth of economic, social, and environmental topics under SDGs. So it's a very wide topic, is what I would like to share with you. The second is Kerala being a very unique economy as well as a unique geography and a society is very much in terms of a leading state in the country in terms of SDG performance. For the last 5 years, Kerala stood on top of the SDG index, which is published by Niti Aayog. So we have a context in terms of the leading SDG performance in the country. The third thing is Kerala has an excellent digital ecosystem, very affordable, global, exceptional talent we have, who can create some of the disruptive solutions and technologies related to sustainable development. So that's also an important point I think we need to consider when we discuss this. So with this initial introduction about the breadth of SDGs and the unique position Kerala puts in forward in terms of creating sustainable solutions using digital technologies, I would like to introduce our panel members here. Jayaraman, who is the MD of Equinox. I still remember 40 years back, we both were in a camp of promising youngsters as a cricketer and a basketball player. But now today we are sitting in a panel on sustainable development here after 40 years. Sandeep Nair, who is the founder for Ventup, who is promoting manufacturing as a service to enable sustainable financing. So Sandeep Nair is here. He will share his experience and expertise on how he is promoting that platform for enabling sustainable manufacturing. Dr. Abhilash is my colleague in QSAT. He had been interacting for a long time, right from the time Jiyojit had set up this center. When I talked to him yesterday, he was telling he is not an entrepreneur himself, but he is having everyday entrepreneurial activity as an academician. He brings out innovative solutions to farmers and agriculturalists and fishermen using some of the cutting-edge technologies that is available. So maybe before I start asking the question, I would like to bring one more context here. Jiyojit QSAT Center for Sustainability Studies, we have a focus on innovation, and we have one work stream working on digital for sustainability. We are coming out with thought leaderships, training programs, and a startup mentoring who would like to use our services as a voluntary service at this point of time. We can help you to understand what is the sustainability impact of the product which you are coming out with as a startup. Or if you want to focus on any of the SDG topics and identify a topic or a use case or a nano use case or a micro use case, we would be happy to help in that. Now with this intro, let me ask Jayaraman, because Jayaraman had really curated a startup which is focused on climate resilience. So when you talk about climate resilience, I think we all might have experienced 2018 floods. So My question to Jairam and to the discussion point is, what was the trigger in terms of creating Equinoct? And when you created Equinoct, what was your primary purpose in terms of leveraging digital solutions for climate resilience? Was it that the primary purpose, or was there anything under your belt when you started that?
Yeah, thank you, Martin. I also went back to the 40 years back when we met in a camp. Since you mentioned about 2018 floods, actually, I would say that it was the trigger for the startup Equinoct. Though we started in 2020, one of my co-founders, Dr. C.G. Madhusudanan, has done an extensive work in the Indian river basins. And in 2018, he had in fact foreseen the flood in Kerala 1 month ahead of what has actually happened. And he had written to the MLAs and MPs and all the district collectors saying that there is a possibility of a flood in Kerala. Since it was an individual cry, nobody listened to it. And in 2020, I happened to meet him and we shared some common worries about whether 2018 and 19 we had a flood, whether if it repeats in 2020 and that too during COVID time, what are the precautions that we can take? And that is how actually Equinoct started up. And we registered immediately as a limited liability partnership company and started working on it. And during the COVID time, we had very limited work that we can do outside. So we ran a campaign called a 10,000-hour knowledge dissemination campaign saying that no time to waste, taken from the IPCC reports, and had online programs with every sector that let it be residents associations, industries, transport sector, and we completed the 10,000 knowledge hour in 1 year. And next year, we were fortunate to get one of the projects by AEIF. AEIF is Alumni Engagement Innovation Fund, funded by the Bureau of Cultural Affairs, US. It is exclusively for the Fulbright alumni, and I was one of them in 2018-19. And we won a project to study tidal flooding in the district of Kerala. In the district of Ernakulam. And that is one area where you don't have any data. Now we are talking about digitalization, where data is the primary thing. And there was absolutely no data about how many houses are affected, when they are affected, and what is the impact. And we carried out that project within 1 year, making some very innovative way of data collection using calendars. The normal calendars that we hang on our walls, distributed it to 10,000 households and got that data from them to find out what, when, how, and what is the impact of tidal flooding in almost 20 panchayats in Ernakulam district, including the municipalities. And then that was a startup, actually, when we actually started up and we started using data and we wanted to collect it. And now we have innovated that into a little bit more of making a mobile app where we can collect this data. We call it as Gather. We gather information and we gather people. And Equinoct is called as a community source modeling solutions where community is the prime importance. And next year, we got a project supported by UNICEF. UNICEF launched its first climate fund for startups working in climate change. And we were the only one from India. And there were only 8 startups selected across the world. And we did a project on impact-based flood forecasting system for 2 river basins in Kerala. That is for Periyar and Chalakudi river basins. And that's where we actually started using more of AI, ML models and data collections. And all our data came from community. We install around 120 rain gauges across these 2 river basins. And every day, 8:30, they collect the data and give to us. And we are now modeling it to a web dashboard where we call it a decision support dashboard. And that is a 1-year project that we ran. And now we are running an IEEE Smart Village project for 25 women enterprises, making them coming under one umbrella and making them a successful business. They were remaining as enterprises and they don't know the marketing and other things. And now we are bringing them under and also integrating renewable energy parts, bringing in solar-based freezers and dryers and electric autos into that project. So in all these areas, digitization is going to be one of the key areas if we want to make it a more successful thing. And data is the primary thing. And the difference is we collect the data from the community and we feel that community is the core part. They should be the people who should be always involved in all kinds of innovations. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Jairam. And so that's very interesting, starting with a flood protection or climate resilience project is widening into various other areas of sustainability. Coming to Mr. Sandeep Nair, I think you were in the early days, in the energy business. What really triggered you, to come to this sustainable manufacturing, especially bringing out the concept of manufacturing as a service? When India is going with the Make in India campaign, what really triggered it, and what is the sustainability angle towards your startup?
Thank you. Thank you, Martin, for the question. So, we started went up a couple of years back. The company is focused on indigenization of critical components, goes into aerospace, defense, energy segment. So, let me put this answer in three way, the question you have asked. The first one is how it contribute to the sustainability side in terms of the carbon emission. Second, how we are building a supply chain resilience in this industry, and how it is values to the economy. So earlier days, like in corporate, if it is a supply chain department, the focus is to find more alternative sources. The focus will be more to how to bring down the cost reduction. But now localization is a little bit different. It's not an option that everyone know. It's an imperative. So how did it work means like the earlier it was the centralized supply chain and the global supply chain. Now we need to look into where the consumption is going to do, where the consumption is going to happen. So the supplier side or the material side should be very closer to the consumption. So thereby we can reduce the long travel distance of these materials, and also it could be a sea freight, air freight, or even road freight. So in that terms, definitely we can reduce the carbon emission, and which in turn contribute to the scope 3 emission. Second, to the supply chain resilience, like we all have seen in COVID-19, again, the entire globe was depend on the centralized supply chain and the global supply chain, which affected most of the heavy industry segment. As we know, like these heavy industry segments, like this material cost is more than 60-70%, which contribute heavily to the scope 3 emissions and the project completion on time. So we know in India, it's millions of MSMEs are there in tier 1 cities, tier 2 and tier 3 cities. But who will empower them in terms of technology, in terms of digitalization, to make a global supply chain? So this will definitely help them to make really the components to manufacture in India very faster. So that empowerment also required for a supply chain resilience. Coming back to the how it adding to the economic values. So like as I said, it's not only like Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, West Bengal and all. In India, a lot of tier 2 and tier 3 cities, especially Coimbatore, Visakhapatnam, in Kerala, Palakkad is also emerging as that. So as I said, a lot of good manufacturers are there, MSMEs are there. They are making really good product, but unfortunately, the sales outreach was poor. Maybe unfortunately, the R&D efforts was poor. So there we are introducing the mass concept, like manufacturing as a service. It's not like Ventup is introducing, it's already evolving in the market. It's essential to become India as a manufacturing hub. So how does it work? Like many companies, they deal with complex projects. It could be electrical, mechanical, or electronics components. They wanted to localize it in India. But the MSMEs, as I said, they are good in manufacturing, but the R&D side is poor. So the mass concept is like that. We should cater a longer or a higher number of components with in-house engineering, design, project management, and supply chain. And we want to utilize the existing manufacturers across in India to underutilize their capacities or untapped possibilities in their factories. So there, Ventups plays a role as a manufacturing as a service company. This will definitely add value on to quality product produced from India, not only for India, it should go for India for global. In turn, it's add the values to the global economy, like Indian economy, and also job opportunity and skill developments in India. So that's what we have chosen this as a segment, and we are proceeding with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Very interesting two cases on startups triggered by sustainability or a passion to create Make in India. No, I'm switching gears to Dr. Abhilash. Dr. Abhilash, you are an accomplished scientist, and who has extreme experience in the climate science and weather forecasting. But what is your practical translation that to some of the local problems? Because I have understood from you that you have done significant work in terms of fishermen or agriculture side. What really triggered that kind of an interest of translating science to society? And what is your input to the youngsters here in terms of using digital solutions for solving problems of the mankind?
Yeah, thank you very much for this introduction and question. So actually, it was all started from the Oki time in 2017 and followed by the flood in 2018. So this is what the two events which not motivated, which drive me to work with the local community and the indigenous, that to the indigenous communities, like as you mentioned, these are the two indigenous communities like fishers and farmers. They are directly affected by climate extremes and climate shocks. In that way, both are sharing some commonalities where the weather prediction and climate services and information is very much important, not only for their profit generation, but for their own life and livelihood support. So in that way, I would say that I am not supporting to make any profit the system, but at the same time, my focus is on reducing the loss and damage due to climate crisis or the climate shock or the extreme weather events. So where what I found was that there are a lot of information available openly. Like there are a lot of sea of data available in open source. Thing is that what I am not doing a great job or something, but what I try to do is that I try to gather whatever available, openly available data source scattered within the internet. Like for example, the plenty of satellites are flying over us, and if you look at the total data generation every time, we are generating a lot of TBs of data is being generated every second from satellite, global models, climate models, and out of that, only 5% of data is being effectively utilized. 95% of the data is unutilized. It is not because of the ability of the modern system to effectively utilize this data. What we are doing in KUSAT is that we gather all satellite data, radar data, other conventional, even from the aircraft data also. Now we invented a methodology by which data can be collected from the aircraft also can be utilized for weather monitoring. And then we have our own radar system, which is installed with the support of DST. Around 25 crores of rupees DST spent on that. It is the first of the kind Doppler profiling radar which we installed in the KUSAT. So what we are doing is that we gather all this type of diverse data scattered around, and we make it in a common platform using different type of models and AI models and data-driven approach to extract the data, assimilate, what we call it as assimilation of this all diverse data into one platform and making it in a usable form. This is what we are doing. So this data, actually it is decoding this data for user-specific application is the main thing which is lacking, and most of our stakeholders, including the pure indigenous fishers and the farmers, they don't understand this data. What we are doing is that we are customizing this data in a way which is understandable by the fishers and farmers for their daily activities. Like, for example, this fishing community, when we talk about the fishing and farming in the broad SDG perspective, we have to look it into in two aspects. Like, when we talk about the sustainable fisheries, we have to link it with the blue economy, because the blue economy is also, there are plenty of opportunities provided by the blue economy, but it is mostly the focus is to make our ocean ecosystem more sustainable for economic development, and also at the same time we have to preserve our ocean, because our ocean is also having lot of pressure due to climate change and other anthropogenic activities. For example, out of the 200 to 300 million tons of plastic we are creating every year is end up in the ocean, around 10%, 10 to 20%, like 10 to 20 million tons of plastic is being dumped to the ocean. So if when we talk about that ocean, because ocean is already under stress due to climate change and the global warming, ocean sea level rise, the coastal communities are under stress. And not only that, most of our resource relocation is being towards the coastal cities. So that is coastal cities, almost all coastal cities are also expanding. So in order to catch up with this, we have to utilize whatever data available with us, and then we have to support, especially the indigenous people. That is why my focus is not on improving or increasing the profit, but at the same time, what we are focusing is on the reducing the loss and damage of these pure indigenous people. So that is why we customize this forecast and make it into a form which is readable by the fishers and farmers. But it all triggered from 2017 Oki event, because I was working as a modeler in a national institute where we are making lot of forecasting system which is actually not reaching to the right people at the right time. So any good forecast can go bad if it is not being properly utilized. So that is why during Oki time there are plenty of information that there is a cyclone or depression is going to come near to Kerala coast, but that was not reaching to the needy people like the pure fishermen. So that was the one trigger which after that what we did with the support of University of Sussex, their social responsibility fund, we have directly worked with the fishing community, and we have educated them how to read forecast map, how to gather climate related information, and how to make out of use. Because if you look at the fishing community itself, there are diverse fishing community which is their activities, even within the Trivandrum coast also you can find 3-4 type of fishing activities, and in terms of their spatial extent, their fishing style, craft and gear, all this they use in a diverse manner. And the thing is that the spatial scale and temporal scale they kind of go for traditional fishers, they go for maybe 12-hour time. They go either in the morning and come back by the evening, or other group they go in the evening and come back by the morning. Their activity is limited to 1 day. But some of the fishers, they go even beyond 200 nautical miles to the beyond our territorial waters, and go even up to Oman, Digo Garcio and other places. So the meaning is that each type of fishing activity requires different type of scale of forecast that has to be disseminated at the right time to the people. So that is what we have developed with the University of Sussex Fund. We have developed a scale of forecast up to 2 to 3 weeks. Starting from 1 day up to 2 weeks, we generate forecast, and kind of monitoring that is passed to the fishers, and so that based on that they can decide their activity, they can plan accordingly. So that is what one part we have done with the fishing community, and other part with the farmers. We are generating this forecast for 2 to 3 days, and even for beyond that the farming itself, that also if you look at the agriculture sector, we have to link with the food security aspects of it, and then we have to link with the smart agricultural practices as coming up. There are a lot of startup companies. And like, for example, the blue economy itself also provides lot of opportunities for the startup companies where, because the ocean, next extraction is from the ocean, because of the most of the land-based resources almost completed. And now the focus is moving towards the ocean, where if you look at the ocean, it already provides 90% of our heat is being dumped to the ocean and provides a lot of means goods and services to the coastal community and also the larger community. So if you look at the scale at which the ocean is providing lot of services to the humankind, we can say that the ocean has to be protected in such a way that the blue economy concept should not hamper the biodiversity, especially the biodiversity of ocean. But now what is happening is that most of the focus is towards extracting minerals and the seabed level extraction, but it is not talking much about the biodiversity aspect of it. That is where some of the startup companies can focus on reducing the pollution. Even lot of pollution is also end up to the ocean, which is harmful to most of the biota in the ocean. So that way we can contribute, and also it provides a lot of opportunities. As I told, renewable energy, there are a lot of renewable energy potential off the shore. Like, for example, the waves, winds, and even the solar potential, everything is there in the ocean. So that way we have to pinch into the startup ecosystem to make renewable energy sector, and also reducing the pollution and increasing the capability of the ocean to support the system. And another way is a smart agriculture, where all this data can be integrated in a dashboard or kind of sensor-based approach to provide timely advisories for the farming community also. So this way, there also our focus is not, because farming is not a 1 day or 2 day affair.
Dr. Abhilash,
Yeah.
can you cut short within the next
Yeah,
1 minute?
what I want to
we
say...
have 2 more rounds of questions.
Yeah. What I want to say here is that whatever we are doing is not in a profit-making type of activity, supporting to reduce the loss associated with climate shocks. That is what I want to say. There are a lot of opportunities there.
Thank you, Dr. Abhilash. So in a nutshell, I think Cochin University has a significant database, and there are efforts taken to disseminate the data for productive usage by every faculty of the society. So startups can actually leverage the data so that they can create some of the products that are required for the society. I'll come back to Jayaraman on asking another question, because when you talk about your platform in terms of climate resilience, if you look at the larger population of the state or larger population of the country, cost will become an important element in terms of delivering your advice for a climate resilient community. Especially the cost of the data, which I think is partly now getting addressed by Cochin University or similar research universities. Even government has a lot of plans to bring out a lot of open source data at a very granular level in terms of climate adaptation and mitigation. But from your perspective, what is that last mile cost? How we are addressing that with low cost sensors or any kind of experience you can share?
I think that's a very relevant part. As I told you, that we are actually working with communities to collect the data. And we are very sorry to say that we are not giving any compensation to the people who are actually collecting the data and giving to us, even though it is one of the most valuable resources that we use. So we are trying to get over to the solution by making some kind of arrangements where the community who collects the data is also getting some kind of compensation, probably like MNREGA is giving some money, 300 rupees for 100 days of work or something like that. If the government can think in terms of similar to that, and if they can compensate to the people who are getting the data is also compensated, then one of the problems of the last mile connectivity will get solved, because there will be more people directly involved in it. And I just want to add that Dr. Abhilash and group is doing excellent work in collecting all the data and analyzing it. But we are trying to, as a startup, we are trying to bridge the small gap, because when the climate weather is rough, you may not have the satellite data may not be as accurate as it is not normal time. So when we depend upon the community data collection, you are sure that what is happening and the error is very less. For example, even if you're looking for the tidal effects, tidal flooding effect, you will not get the data from the satellite, how much inches of water has gone up in your kitchen. And when it is, if it is in the night, what is the amount, what is the trouble that you're going to face? So that way, unless and until you have the community connect, the problems will not be addressed properly and solutions will be very difficult. Since we have this community gatherers around us and we get them, even the ground truthing is much more better when we have this community connect. So in that way, the cost is reduced because India has got a larger population. Unlike in any other developed countries, I think even Google is doing a lot of these kinds of search, but they do depend too much on technology and they can't afford to do this as we do in India. Even though we can't call it as cheap labor, we are exploiting it. But one way the cost reduction is because we have so many people who can work on that. And if government can work out some way of compensating these data, that is one thing. And second thing is about the digital part, the technology part. We have found it, we have very intentionally made all our rain gauges manual because we don't want to lose that community connect. But at the same time, we wanted to have a few automatic rain gauges to counter check whether these are correct or not. But we found it extremely difficult to get it done from Kerala. We approached many engineering colleges to get an automatic rain gauges done at a very small cost, but it became very difficult for us, and ultimately we had to get it done from Bangalore. So there is a potential, and sensor was one of the problems that we have faced. The first one we developed, the sensors failed within a month. Then we went for another sensors. So there is a huge scope of developing low-cost sensors with these kinds of small data collection for weather data collection, the rain gauges or the river water gauges. And we are also measuring groundwater level gauges because those are very important for predicting floods, the groundwater level, the river water level, and also the dam water level, including the rain gauges. Unless we combine all four these components, we will not be able to say whether some impacts will be there for the tomorrow if there is a 10-centimeter rain, which our all area will be inundated. If you want to predict, I don't say predict, if you can foresee that, then definitely you want to integrate all these things. And everywhere you need more scientific intervention with a low-cost data collection methodologies. And that is where the startups have to look into. And only thing that I want to say is if you can maintain that community connect, then some part of the cost reduction can be reduced. And definitely the community has to be compensated, which is not being done now. I think I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you, Jairam. The next question I'll go to. Sandeep, you are talking about a platform where you are enabling manufacturing in the country at a quality level of the global, making the Make in India dream a possibility. What kind of technologies or what kind of approaches you have taken? So if the startup ecosystem would like to know what kind of approaches you have taken so that we can create some products of global quality locally, reducing the carbon emissions at the same time improving the localization.
Sure. Like, as I said, we are focusing more on indigenization and localization of critical components. Again, I am repeating critical components. Could be electrical, mechanical, or electronic. As we know, it's not easy. Because to start with, we need to know that whether we have the raw material available here, the technology available here, we have the technical resource available. So it's not an easy journey at all. When we are, if somebody is starting a factory with a specific product, yes, he can do his time, effort, and to research on that specific product. But we are here addressing a larger pain point. We wanted to hear from customer, okay, which product is the pain point for them? Definitely, they will come up with 1,000+ components as a pain point. So everything, how it is possible with a single company or a single mode of work. It's possible. I'm not saying everything is possible, but the maximum we can cover up. Yes, of course, technology is required. As I said earlier, like millions of MSMEs are there. They walk in with a very minimal workforce. Some of the companies will be having 8 to 10 employees. They are doing multitasking. The R&D person also may be a salesperson. The salesperson also work as a shop floor manager. So this is happening in India. So of course, as a mass company, we want to empower them on the R&D side with more technical resource, how we can give them to develop the products. Also, along with that, the technology, as Martin was asking, like the technology is very, very important. How we do the localization. Yes, everyone, those who are, I think the most of the audience are students. Some of them will be from mechanical stream. Of course, 3D scanning is one of the technology. It is very much useful in the industry, especially in the manufacturing segment, because these high complex components or capex equipments or sub-assembly components, this has been came from China or from Europe. There is no backend document for that. There is no specification on the material content on that. So with the 3D scanning, we can convert this physical product to a digital drawing. Then that drawing can be analyzed. So 3D scanning is a methodology. Then again, we could not find out the content. What is the content used in that? Yes, machineries are available, like PMIs, like positive material analyzers are there. We can understand what kind of a content is being used. So the digital drawing plus the content. Yes, of course, manufacturing is an industry where IP is very, very less, I would say. But the next generation manufacturing should be an IP driven. Okay, we don't want to copy a product what the Europe was produced or China was produced. So with using AI adoption for part optimization, because drawing is available, material content is available, we can analyze, like, can we change the material content with an X material to Y material without affecting the quality or the performance of that material. So AI adoption is another technology we need to use. Instead of copying, we need to generate an IP related product in India. Yes, 3D scanning is there, PMI is there, AI adoption is there. Similarly, we want to do the traceability also. And like product is made, a prototype is made. We need to see like how the cycle of production is happening. We need to predict that the performance, how long the performance, how often we need to change. So digital technologies are evolving on that. And one of the most important segment what we have seen is how to develop a product, new part development. So many of them, those who are aware about the mechanical industry, they must be heard about a process called gate process. Like it's very old thing, like when Japanese and all started the manufacturing, that time onwards it is there. But how many of them are really using in their manufacturing segment? That's the important thing. Like many of them very aware about the agile methodology, scrum methodology, what we have often hear in software developing or SaaS industry. So similar way, gate is similar to that in the manufacturing industry. So gate from 0 to 7, there are steps are there. 0 is, of course, we need to hear from the pain point of the end user. We need to decide that whether it is possible in India with respect to our infrastructure, technology, and raw material. If at all that is possible, we should move to the next level with an agreement with all the stakeholders who wanted to develop that. We should form a project team. We should develop a prototype, 1 or 2 samples. Based on the criticality of that component, we need to go with the type testing in national accredited laboratories, mechanical testing, temperature testing. It could be related to the complexity of that. Then only we can certify that, okay, that product is equally a product comes across as a global standard with meeting the global quality standards. So again, for that technology adoption is required, because the supplier who is developing, the engineer who is making this, the end user, everyone has to come into a single page to approve each gate, so that we can reduce the time cycle used for the trial and error methods. We can, one shot itself, we can make a product, can go for the actual production or actual machinery, then we can analyze the performance. To summarize that, like 3D scanning, PMI, AI adoption, a lot of the technology we need to implement in the manufacturing segment. Again, coming to that, it should not be, what all are the things we are developing, it should not be a complex one. It should be a simple and impactful technology, which a shop floor employee can understand and he can utilize in his day-to-day day-to-day activities in the shop floor. Then only it is meaningful. Otherwise, a complex technology we have developed and only the company CEO or someone in the tech team can understand, that doesn't work in the manufacturing segment. Again, coming to the startup communities, like those who are looking, the opportunity in this, I told a lot of digital solutions are available. Again, it's very, very costly. If we look into a 3D scanner, it will cost around like 70 lakh to 1 CR. And again, we are dependent upon European companies importing that. So there are opportunity, we can develop that, we can do R&D and develop that thing. many of these AI methodology for manufacturing we can develop. So these all are some of my advice to the startup community or to the students. They can think about that. So that's all about my question. My answer. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandeep. Shifting to Professor Abhilash. Abhilash, you are talking about not translating the global databases for localization and even granularization of the data, to make it more specific to a context. What is your advice to the startup ecosystem? What kind of methods they can use? Because this problem is a very, very generic problem related to multiple kind of data sets. You name it climate data set or marine ecosystem data set or biodiversity data set or waste data set, everything. This translation of the global data to a local data at a granular level. What is your advice to the ecosystem, please?
Yeah, in order to have more means prototype generation is one way we can do before going for large scale production, like previous speaker has already mentioned about the different type of 3D printing capability used in mechanical manufacturing, things like that. We can also go for prototyping things, work around within the community. So where what we are envisaging is that we have to have it in a kind of decentralized approach where the community, it's a kind of co-production of knowledge, where the community knowledge has to be merged with the scientific knowledge in a way that indigenous knowledge also has to be brought into. So when it comes to the localization and the main advice, suppose, for example, we have a lot of startup companies working in agriculture sector where they are working in silos. Like, for example, some of the drone-based companies, they just do the pesticides applications whenever it is required, or maybe targeted irrigations where they only look at the soil health part of it. But a integrated approach is required to gain the maximum benefit out of it. That is why the end-to-end products chain, where we have to integrate the weather forecasting, climate information with all the Jayaraman sir was telling about the low-cost sensor, which is being largely utilized by most of the startup companies at the ground level, local level, where they are getting information from this soil health or the leaf health, so that they apply different type of pesticides and when to go for fertilizations. So that there, if it is not integrating the weather component into it, and that too in a different scale, like, for example, the planning of the agricultural activity starts from the selection of the seed, and then for preparing the field, and then go for sowing it. That time, the main thing is that we should not forget our main workforce as far as India is concerned. Even though agriculture sector is contributing only 16 to 18% of our GDP, but the 50% of our total workforce is still in agriculture sector. So that is what the point here is. So any small kind of activity which can improve, because smart agriculture, the main motto is to improve the production or the income of the farmers, and at the same time you have to reduce the cost and also reduce the long-term mitigating the greenhouse gas emissions. So in order to make all this working together, we have to have an integrated approach where all climate information, weather information has to brought into it in different stages. For example, sowing, after sowing immediately we anticipating, because why monsoon onset over Kerala is most important is that because 50 to 60% of our Indian agricultural land is still being irrigated by the monsoon rain. So that is why all our farmers are looking at the monsoon onset over Kerala, so that after 10 days, anticipating that the Karnataka farmers and the Maharashtra farmers anticipating that the rain will reach there, so that they will actually start their preparing their agricultural land maybe 10 days in advance. after the onset of it. That is why now in the presence of climate change and extreme weather events, the rainfall pattern is changing. So this is time to integrate all this type of short and medium range forecast to the agricultural activities, where based on the agricultural forecast advisories, they have to go. Otherwise, what will happen? The soil condition, based on only on the soil condition, where they put some soil moisture sensor, soil temperature sensor, if there is any kind of water stress, it will directly go for irrigation. So it is not like that. You have to integrate all this type of scales of different leads of forecast to then make it in a more integrated way, where the community participation is also very much important. As Jayaraman was telling, the main truth lies in the local level. So where the community participation is also important, where awareness program is very much important. So whenever it comes to the climate action or the large scale SDG goals, which is clubbed with the smart agriculture practices with the different type of sensors, and also the data coming from different type of sensors, weather forecast, and the field level has to be integrated, where AIML, GraphCast model, is widely being used for that purpose. So where all these startup companies can think about kind of a integrated approach to localize and integrating the traditional knowledge or the local indigenous knowledge with the community participation, we can make a more localization of this, whatever we are doing in a large scale. And maybe a good advice from me to the startup companies, especially working in the agriculture sector, has to work with the community and also integrate different type of data sets which is available in open source.
Thank you, Professor. I'll go for the last round of questions. I think this question, almost lingers around from everyone in the startup ecosystem. Now we hear a significant backlash in terms of sustainability, ESG, climate action from some of the economies, not from all of the economies. But those economies are really powerful economies. So will that affect the investments or opportunities in sustainable startups is one question I think is lingers around. So I would like all three of you, to answer to that question. Maybe I'll conclude that after you all give your opinion. But starting with Jayaraman, please.
Actually, Equinoct was one of the startups selected by Josh Talks and IIM Calcutta for a startup venture, a startup acceleration program. And we were the odd one out, because we didn't want to be a unicorn in 2 years. We didn't want to make 10 crores of profit in 2 years. And we wanted to have more impacts for our innovations. So we failed. And we failed in many reasons, because we were an LLP. No venture capital will give us a fund. No angel funder will give us a fund. So the only option for us grants. So that is where Martin was talking. We were looking into various grants, just like UNICEF grant or other things. But there is a big backlash nowadays, because most of the things came from US and other places. And the moment you start talking about climate change, your project will get rejected. Even this time, we applied for that AEI funding this time. And since they said that since you have two words there, climate change and gender, I think it will not go through. So we didn't go through also. So there is a big problem. But I just want to add on to another thing is, since we are working, I told you that we are working with communities, and most of our energy, time, and effort is going to educate the administrators. Even today, my CEO was with me, but he had to run back because there was a call from district panchayat president to have a meeting. We were looking for an appointment right from the morning, and he got it just now. So 90% of our time we went in educating the administrators, like from panchayat. We held 2 conferences of panchayat, calling all the panchayat presidents to just about tidal flooding. And we were successful in one way enough, because we are trying to tell them that tidal flooding, the government has to declare it as a disaster. So far, they are not done. But at least 8 panchayats have made a resolution saying that it has to be declared as a disaster. So these types of work, nobody will give you money for that. But you have to keep on working with them, with the communities, working with all the panchayats. I'm not exaggerating, 90% of our time and effort went in educating, talking to the people, right from the panchayat to the MLAs and MPs, and talking about climate resilience and the importance of it. And the most important thing is, even for making some kind of resilience building for the 16 or 17 panchayats in Ernakulam to big one impact of climate change like tidal flooding, it'll come to 5,000, 6,000 crores. So it is not easy unless and until you get the governments in also in line, you will not be able to solve the problem. No amount of funding coming from other areas will solve this problem. And that is one of the challenges. For these kinds of groundworks, nobody will give you money also. So there are different kinds of impacts. One is, as Dr. Abhilash has said, climate change impacts are increasing every day. You can't predict your rains, you can't predict your drought, all these things are happening. But at the same time, we want a solution as quickly as possible. So it's a big challenge, but still we have to keep on trying and find other ways. Maybe we are also happy to know from where the fund is coming.
Yes. To add on that same topic from the manufacturing perspective, uh, like since we started like into, as I said, into complex manufacturing of like critical components. I am coming from a corporate background. Like 17 years, I was working with Siemens, Hitachi, and L&T. So I know this corporate how much R&D they will put into research and development a product. So it's huge investment. Like if somebody has an idea, somebody want to start a startup to solve the problem in the manufacturing segment, definitely it is capital intensive. So in earlier era, I'm not saying the current situation, earlier era, when we look into the VCs, angels or fundings and all, like SaaS technology or fintech has a better leverage, manufacturing was not that much lucrative to look into the funding shape. But things are changing now. We all know the tariff was going on across US and Europe side. The China plus one strategy we all are witnessing after COVID-19. So who else if not China? So India is the best place to be the manufacturing hub. Of course, we should accept the fact that, okay, we are 15 years back what China is currently now. Definitely it will take time to reach us, but a huge potential what we have, which I was referring earlier also, the MSME power, that is what we wanted to utilize. But now coming back to the funding stage, it's changing. Like I have seen a lot of VCs or angels who focused or who are introducing new fund, which is specifically focusing to the deep tech and manufacturing side. So I want to take this as a positive side for the new entrepreneurs or students or startups, those who are wanted to get into this segment. This is the right time. The macro is very good. Funds are available, I would say. Of course, it's not easy to get the fund unless and until if you are solving a purpose. Like again, it's a capital intensive market, very complex market. But the purpose is there. The sustainability of that business will be definitely the VCs can understand, and even the government also putting a lot of initiatives on the manufacturing side. So are there challenges are there, but the situation is right now it's a very good favorable situation to get into this kind of segment. And we also like foresee that this will definitely help to boost the economy in India. That's where we can increase our GDP percentage that manufacturing we need to do. Maybe I will put up an example. Like recently, last month, I visited Adani copper plant in Kutch. So that was in Mundra. So that was going to be the world's biggest copper plant in India. Definitely, the raw metal are still coming from Brazil. But the technology there, again, we could not develop that technology here. The Chinese partner is developing that technology in Mundra. And they have to hand over this to the Adani port. But how to sustain that business? They have to localize. So they were asking me, okay, you said you are going to set up an R&D team for reverse engineering. Why can't you set a team for 5 years in that factory so that they can work inside their factory and work on the reverse engineering? So why I'm saying this example means the potential where large industries are coming up in India, if they want to sustain their business, the subcomponents or sub-assemblies or the spare parts has to be localized in various ways. So it's a deep segment, complex segment. There are opportunity, government initiatives are there, fund is there. If the pitching is to be there, and we should focus on the IP. Manufacturing, again, the area, the IP driven, it's not too much IP driven, but someone is developing a new concept, it should be an IP driven, then definitely you can secure the funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Professor Abhilash, your views?
What I would say is that there are a lot of opportunities, though funds are limited. But we can um, because if you look at the blue economy as such, there are a lot of opportunities in terms of biotechnology sectors where a lot of drug production companies are already there in that segment, and where renewable and also the pollution related aspects from the small scale startups also can be thought about. That will also be in support. And another thing is in the disaster management itself, where the UN is already allocated almost like 500 to 500 billion to 1 trillion US dollar for loss and damage front, where large scale disaster risk reduction projects can pinch into it, where as Jayaraman sir was telling, lot of prototyping options are available, like for example landslide early warning system, where a lot of sensors has to be integrated with the already existing database, where the sensor development itself is a challenging thing, because most of this sensors which is in the ground is coming at a very large cost. Even one unit, integrated unit itself costs around 2 to 3 crores of rupees. That cannot be installed everywhere where we are expecting the landslide, where small startup companies can think about wireless sensors based network of sensors which is integrated in a one node, like through LoRaWAN network or something. That has to be communicated to a remote place, because most of the landslides happen in the remote place. And then that is the area where any tech companies can pinch into. And also we are also supporting for this type of development. And also this type of very huge sensors, including the mechanical sensors and the electronic and electrical sensors, which detect the slight movement of the land, that can be also monitored through GNSS based satellite based applications, including the GNSS based receivers, if you can make into that, can be also be utilized for as a low cost option. And also there are a lot of options available for building this with optical sensors that is not at utilized much. And these are some of the small opportunities available in those areas where large scale blue economy, biodiversity, and disaster management. Because though the blue economy provides a lot of opportunities, with even India government itself is allocated almost like 10,000 crores of rupees that for that alone. As Sandeep was mentioning, there is no integrated or the ready option available. Still we are depending on the Chinese use case providers. So there are a lot of opportunities available, but how to pinch into that is another question. I don't know. I don't have any answer also. But on a small scale, on disaster risk reduction aspects, there are a lot of opportunities available. So these are in the academic point of view, these are some of the options available before the small startups.
Thank you, Professor Abhilash. I think we are coming to the close of the panel discussion. Thank you for all the inputs you have given during this discussion. One point of view which I would like to share here, because we talked about funding and we talked about the backlash on sustainability globally. This backlash is very much regionalized. If you see US geography, there is a significant backlash. In Europe, there is a recalibration that is happening, because European Union also is now talking about simplifying some of the sustainability related regulations. But if you come to Asia Pacific, especially India, Southeast Asia, as well as China, every countries are still very rigorously implementing, promulgating and implementing regulations related to sustainability. A classic example is in India. Last 5 years, we have seen 50 regulations that has come, including extended product responsibilities, carbon markets establishment, green washing regulations that has come in India, regulations related to ESG funds that has come in India. And the indication is that these regulations are not going to be simplified, or it's not going to be backtracked in the country, primarily because the risk of getting into an unsustainable economy for India compared to many other countries in the world is extremely high. And if you look at some of the studies, Kerala's GDP, 22% of the Kerala GDP can be affected by 2050 if we don't address the climate problem. So it's a significant risk for the economy, for the fiscal system, for the citizen. So there is a purpose in which a startup can actually get into when you are getting into a sustainable startup. Funding from a country perspective, there is significant regulations and support that is coming. Global funding, there are impact investors who are still putting their bet. I was attending a fellowship of impact investors from US in the first part of this year. I could see significant funds who are really interested in supporting sustainable development, but they are all caught up in the regulatory political turmoil which is happening. So the message which I would like to give you, when we conclude this session, it's an area which is very close to our own lives. It's an area which is going to be significantly important for the country, for the state, and those who are really purpose driven. I would think that people like Jayaraman and Sandeep, they are all started their startup in a purpose driven case, not to become a unicorn immediately, but to solve some of the social problems which we are facing, which will be close to each of our lives and our children's or grandchildren's life. That's going to be the key takeaway for you. So if you are interested in protecting your own life, your children's and your grandchildren's life, probably take up that cause and then invest in a purpose-driven manner. I will close this with this message, but I would open up for any discussions or observations from the audience here.
I represent an organization called Enterprise Pivot. We are primarily catering to non-profit and social enterprises. So what we noted based on the interaction with the leaders in the sector, it's basically not much of awareness in the sector on the SDG itself. So what we were actually trying is that aligning the activities of this sector to the overall global goals like UN SDG, ESG and all. But there was no basic awareness, lack of awareness even on the SDG. So is that a real an issue you see? Like there's a lack of awareness all over. I mean, when NGOs doesn't know what is SDG.
Sir, I think you raised a very valid point. Now, I would say that there are certain organizations who has very detailed awareness because they had been facing this issue for a long time. But there are organizations who still are in the early stages. Now, I'm talking about the corporates. On the NGO side, I've seen most of the NGOs which I've interacted. They have clear understanding about what they are doing, what are the SDG impact of what the activity they are doing. But if you look at the larger ecosystem, for example, students or the academia, they all do significant work related to SDGs, but they do not know which SDG or which target they are working on. So one initiative which we are taking, like from Geojit QSAT Center, why Geojit QSAT Center was established was the primary reason why, this was the reason why it was established. Because to spread the awareness, build the capability of the ecosystem, train students, train professors, interact with the startup ecosystem to share this awareness. So if you have any joint programs which we can do, we can always get into that.
So my question is, nowadays we talk a lot about AI. And when there is a lot of data, AI becomes very important on a daily basis. How sustainable is AI? There are multiple views that I read on a daily basis, especially when it comes to water utilization. So how do you align that with sustainability? One, and India is progressing. We have a lot of opportunities. Everybody repeated the word opportunity. So when you harness this opportunity, you end up utilizing natural resources. Common sense, right? So how do you strike that balance in this process?
I think two very, very relevant, interesting questions. I'll try to answer both very quickly. See, responsible AI from two counts. When you talk about responsible AI, one is whether AI is doing the right thing for the society. That is the question. Whether AI is providing the right recommendation, or is it having some kind of bias? That is one angle which we talk about responsible AI. The integrity of the intelligence that is coming from there. The other direction is when you start using AI, when you do a lot of training, how much of energy is actually used and how you are going to support the chip manufacturing related to the AI and from where that rare earth elements will come in. That is an important area which I think all the digital players globally have understood. That is why if you look at GCO's strategy, we have also identified digital for sustainability as an important topic. And we are coming out with training programs on how to select equipment that are low energy. There are standards for that. ITO has come out with detailed standards on how the electronic equipment is manufactured. Second, how do you house these equipments in a building and how to run that building more efficiently, like a green building or Griha standard, that's also available. And on the software front, there are standards on how to develop a software which is green and how do you provision that software in terms of operations in various servers across the globe. How can you run it with more renewable energy rather than use fossil fuel? So that is also a science that has come up. There are new standards, new initiatives that are coming. So a prediction is that today digital ecosystem consumes 1.4% of the global carbon emissions. We are not doing enough work. By 2045, it will consume 14%, which is like double the amount of carbon emission that is coming. So it's a very important area. But what I can tell you is there are initiatives that are taken up. People have understood that this is a problem to be addressed. Otherwise, the carbon emissions and climate change targets will not be achieved. The second point you are talking about is a more philosophical point, like whether degrowth or growth is suitable for a country. I think the question is nowhere. I cannot answer that question because today morning I was seeing telling we need 10,000 crores startups or 100,000 crores startups capturing the opportunity, and we are now coming back and telling we cannot use resources for that. No, it's a tussle. Actually, it's a kind of philosophical struggle that is going on whether growth or degrowth is going to lead us. I would say that the human intelligence and human power will overpower all this. We'll find out a way to address growth without using much of natural resources within the planetary boundaries. That's what my hope is. That's what I think everyone in this room is sitting for also. So thank you very much for the excellent inputs, insights, and thank you for patient listening.